Welcome to EDCO's new podcast designed to give the Central Oregon community a glance into how local companies are working to pivot and navigate new challenges. EDCO's staff are working with local traded sector companies throughout this crisis to solve varying problems. And it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, as you'll later hear. I'm Matt Hand with Hand in Hand Productions, and I'll be your moderator for today's discussion. Please help me in welcoming today's guests, Roger Lee, EDCO's CEO, and Caprielle Lewis, EDCO's Sisters Area Director. Hi, guys. How's it going?
Good afternoon,
Great. Thanks, Matt.
So let's dive into this discussion and find out what programs are available to businesses and examples of how some companies are adapting. So I'm going to start with you, Roger, first. For those who don't know, what is EDCO and who do you help?
Yeah, you mentioned traded sector, so maybe that's a place to start. We really characterize that as companies who are exporting a good or service outside of our region, and so they're not dependent upon the local economy. Something that's obviously very important right now as local economy, but even national economy is being heavily impacted by COVID-19 measures. So that traditionally that's been manufacturers, more and more it's manufacturing and tech, and then even professional service companies. So there's about 900 of those type of companies across the Tri-County area. And we really work with those companies one-on-one. And so we're not an unfamiliar face actually in their place of business, helping them with challenges, things that keep them up at night, on a regular basis, and also opportunities for growth. So we've been doing this work on this one-on-one basis for the last 20 years.
Yeah, and Caprielle, can you mention or can you talk? I mean, it seems like you guys don't work in isolation. Can you talk to me a little bit about, who do you partner with, I guess?
Thanks for the question, Matt. No, our partners are essential to the work that we do. While we have area directors for a reason, we know our communities well. We know our businesses very well and have established relationships with them, as Roger said. We partner very closely with our Business Oregon and Small Business Development Center, our chambers, our local municipalities, our commissioners at the county level, as well as East Cascades Work. So, all with a very dedicated and a focus towards a more resilient economy regionally and locally.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, today. So what steps are businesses taking and finding helpful right now? I don't know who wants to take that first.
I might start in and have Cappy follow. We've our reach to the traded sector companies across the region in the last 2 to 3 weeks. We've really seen some themes emerge from that. Now we're offering services and resources as they come available and try to keep on top of that. But I think some themes that we've seen businesses do that I think are pretty interesting is that maybe 3 things. They're reaching out to key people that can help, shorten their burn rate and lengthen the runway for cash, which is obviously critical right now. That includes financial institutions reaching out about mortgages and other, loan repayment, temporary suspension of those or some deferment. Their landlords to talk about similar things. And then their material suppliers, distributors, customers, et cetera, to help change up payment terms and so forth. Another key thing they've done is reduced operational costs, trying to adjust that when you've got zero or even, or falling revenue. And they've done that by voluntarily cutting pay, strategic furloughs, or when absolutely necessary, cutting people from their staff. They've renegotiated their accounts payable and accounts receivable, and they're suspending or cutting back on discretionary spending. So those are key things as well. And maybe a third item is that they figured out ways to conduct business in a different way or to even produce different products, which it's pretty remarkable to see how these folks have been able to quickly turn and pivot and do other things where there is a demand in the economy or where there's a shortage or a need, say with medical industry and PPE. So those are a few themes that we've seen in our meetings across the Tri-County area.
Yeah, great. Caprielle, is there anything that you would add that Roger hasn't already talked about?
Yeah, and those are all key. I'd say, they're evaluating their customers' credit, looking at market changes and demand, having to adjust to those for their forecasting. dropping some programs. Some are on a hiring freeze or have had to lay off, reducing hours. They're responsibly adjusting their operational practices. That was key. As well as having their workers remote, particularly their executives that can work remotely. We're definitely seeing an uptick in remote working. A few of our companies, believe it or not, are leaning into this and doing much more social media outreach. So working together with some of our business service companies locally to use Amazon support services and some of those other business services that will help them with that social media outreach, and securing additional amounts of raw materials. I mean, we're definitely seeing companies make sure that they have a secure supply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know that one of the things that as these companies are trying to evaluate what they're doing, there's more and more programs available. Roger, can you speak into kind of, how to choose the right program?
Yeah, I think for a lot of companies, it's just complete information overload right now, and everybody's sending them information about programs. I think one of our things we've tried to do is actually help them navigate, look at individual programs, not necessarily take them down the path of, completing the applications, but certainly trying to point them in the direction of lower hanging fruit versus higher hanging fruit as far as accessing resources, which is where a lot of companies are at, outside these strategy measures we already talked about, is trying to find capital. So, and at the same time, we've had companies navigate that, pretty effectively, and yet still kind of be left, without additional cash injections on the funding side of things. So, but there's other programs out there. We've tried to make our companies aware of these long before this event happened, like WorkShare. You don't have to lay off all your employees. You can keep some of those folks on a reduced hours and still have them get paid in a full-time basis, which what we find a lot of companies doing is really wanting to keep a hold of their teams as much as possible, even if there is some temporary furloughs happening out there. They're communicating with their companies and so forth. So, the programs are certainly useful out there, but I think their effectiveness as of now is kind of yet to be determined. And so we're trying to encourage folks to spend their limited time where there's best possible benefit.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, Roger. So question for you, Caprielle, is there anything that you'd like to add with that?
Yeah, initially the disaster relief loan was something that our companies, a few of them, were looking at immediately. We were very concerned about timing, accessing capital quickly. However, our first number one is work closely with your financial institution. We're fortunate that most of our companies have great relationships with their financial institutions. And so start there. There could be programs there, and we're seeing more and more roll out with our regional financial institutions to help our businesses access capital quickly, but also be familiar with the programs that are available and being rolled out. But we had a huge concern about accessibility. So we're focusing on state programs and, again, working with their financial institutions.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to start this one with Caprielle, because I know you've got somebody in Sisters where you are, but can you tell me a story of a local company kind of working together to adapt? And I know you've got at least one example out there in Sisters.
Yeah. Again, some of our companies, if they've got a supply chain, where they're concerned about potentially being more limited or concerned about it in the future, they're working together to secure larger supply. And so you can, you would order more than you normally would. So if you could work with another company in a similar or in the same industry. We've also seen quite a lot of coordination for PPE. Some of our smaller companies are figuring out if they have capacity on their 3D machines, or if they are a company, for example, in the outdoor industry that has, sewing capability. So I've got a company in Sisters that is working, with a company in Bend that sews, and they're going to be able to donate, several thousand masks to our frontline healthcare workers. So Another company of mine sells their products to the gymnasium market and events, and they're pivoting to look at distributing their products to frontline workers as well. So I think in times of crisis, you do see these innovations and need to lean on each other and help each other through it.
Yeah. Hey, Roger, do you have some examples also that you would like to share as far as some, companies coming together?
Yeah, I think we see companies sharing a lot of information about how they're pivoting with each other. Some with our involvement and a fair amount without our involvement. These are connections that we've helped make over the years that I think now are bearing fruit on folks knowing each other and saying, "Hey, what are you doing for this?" This came up recently with treatment of masks that is going to increase that supply, and we have companies that are doing different things. From using different types of technology to different types of treatment processes that I think they're sharing information, figuring out ways to, help meet that demand for our healthcare industry.
Yeah, I think it's great to see kind of some of these businesses coming together and how Central Oregon is sort of, we're really working to make sure that we get through this important time. Roger, what's next? I mean, what's next for the business? What's next for you guys?
Well, that's a great question. I think a lot of where we head in the future here with our economy is dependent upon how long these stay in place, or social distancing, at least how they've been rolled out now, how long they take effect. Really has a huge impact on our economy. We're going to continue to consult businesses. I've heard some folks talk of recovery. We're still in the stabilization stage, really, of this until those restrictions are lifted. But I have to just say that it is truly inspiring to see what our businesses are doing to figure this out. Certainly with other resources, but also out of their own experience and ingenuity. And we're trying to share those stories really through these series of podcasts, which will include companies really talking about those solutions they're coming up on their own with, that we think others can learn from. So look for that to come down the road. We're certainly going to continue to monitor any additional resources that come down the line, and hopefully help companies really guide them through that versus maybe just kind of dumping on our webpage, which we've had information up there at a very early stage to help companies see what's out there and be able to try to access those, but really helping them through with a helping hand.
Right. Yeah. Caprielle, is there anything from a sister standpoint that you just wanted to share, or, what's going on out there in your community?
Yeah, we're strong. We're helping each other. We've got the chamber, the city, EDCO here, and sisters working together on making sure all of our businesses have access to information. So we really, these relationships with our partners are key. Some of us are on the economic recovery team calls, and that goes to the state level as well as federal level. So, it can be overwhelming for companies to access this information, but we're here to make sure as we go forward that we are somebody they can reach out to. That's one of the key takeaways is it's time to reach out. It's not time to freeze up if you are struggling with the current crisis.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Roger, how do we get in touch with EDCO? What are the best ways to do that?
Yeah, so we're easily found on the web, but we also have local offices. We have 5 local offices across the region, so you can access those folks on our webpage. Just go to the team, and you'll have direct contact via email or phone. And we encourage folks to reach out, but we also are reaching out. We're going to try to make sure we hit all of our and talk to all of our local traded sector employers across the Tri-County area. It's a big number, but it's still a relatively small number compared to all businesses. So as we're able to work through the folks I guess we've been charged with helping for the last 40 years in the region, we're also looking to expand and provide lessons learned and access to resources, certainly for the broader business community as well.
Yeah. Hey, Roger, Caprielle, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Keep up the good work. What you guys are doing, I appreciate it. Thanks.
We appreciate your partnership too.
Hey, I want to thank you. So to get in touch with EDCO, make sure to visit their website, edcoinfo.com. There you'll find a list of current resources and contact information for EDCO staff and the communities they serve. Remember, you are not in this alone, and we'll see you next time.